Well,
Good morning.
good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Happy Monday.
Yeah, happy Monday. I'm doing drop off.
I know we keep talking about changing the time for this committee, so but we haven't done
Yeah,
it.
I think 9 o'clock would be better for days like this.
Yeah, we could.
So
I think we can move to 9 o'clock for the rest of the school year and then revisit for next school year. But we'll check with the committee if you want.
can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, you just dropped out.
All right, I'm back. Is this better?
Yes, I can hear
Okay. Yeah, I was leaving my house and the Wi-Fi thing,
you. Yeah.
Okay. So Christina, since I'm driving
Yes.
and it's gonna take me like 5 or 10 minutes to get to my office, I'm gonna just start the meeting and hand it over to Dr. Silver.
Okay.
Um, as you know, we talk Friday, so everything's
Okay.
should be pretty clear.
Good morning, Tyrone, and good morning, Lori.
Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Microphone issue here, but
Oh, we can hear you.
All right. So Dr. Silver, I think you might have heard that conversation. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me know when we're ready to go, Christina.
Oh, yeah, we're ready. We have oh, Mr. McGurk just joined. And Mr. Walker's on the call.
And Jahira's not going to make Francois. Francois not on the screen.
She has not responded yet, but I did send her a message.
Okay. All right. Well, what time is it? 8:31. Yes. All right. So good morning, everyone. I pray that everyone has had a warm weekend. No pipes burst. No, ceilings for none of the home ownership issues. Hopefully, you made it through pretty successfully, and you have all your fingers to account for, and toes, because it was freezing. My toes were freezing the other day. But I want to welcome you to our February policy meeting, and I'm excited about this meeting because this meeting is a meeting where we actually lay some foundation and context for the rest of the year. I'm especially excited about the reintroduction of the equity policy that we'll be introducing. We don't have that many policies to discuss today, but the one that probably gives me life is the equity policy that we're going to be reintroducing. So good morning to all. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Silver. As you know, I am dropping off my oldest at the moment, so I will be mute for a couple minutes as his teacher comes, gets him from the car. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Silver and just to get us going. But good morning to all, and thank you all for being here. The floor is yours, Dr. Silver.
And
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone.
I am screen sharing the agenda just so we could see. And good morning, Francois. I just saw your chat. So Dr. Silver, I know public comments. Did you want me to quickly review?
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Sure. We had talked about public comment in the bylaws for a while now, kind of clarifying the policy to number one. Actually, let me start on 93.21. There's a few things somebody did comment on. It's not a dialogue session because it's not a back and forth. So I just quickly did a red line, just calling it public comment session. And also clarifying, even though, as you can see, we've always had public comment up front and then public comment after the business agenda. So just clarifying that in the beginning, parents and students can go first, and then there's public comment on agenda items, especially considering those meetings where we have a lot of public speakers, to make sure that everyone gets a chance to speak on agenda items prior to the votes, and then keeping additional public comment after the meeting. Also, a few, if you notice on actually two policies, clarifying on one section, it says that public comment has a maximum of 30 minutes. And if you'll notice on the other side, it has 60 minutes. So I did want to, I think we talked about the board. I know Mr. Walker had expressed his recommendation of 60 minutes for public comment max, and then additional public comment at the end of the meeting. And also here, just also clarifying, unless otherwise directed by the board chair, public comment prior to the business agenda must be on the agenda item topics. All other topics will be reserved for public comment after the business agenda. It's just a clarifying, because many people thought it was a little vague the way things were written. And the last thing, sorry, just to clarify, when we have public hearings, there was one, a person may address the board no more than twice during a single meeting. And I'm adding, provided that all speakers have the opportunity to speak at least once. And that's all. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Christina,
Yes.
the right there, that provision here about the public comment section having to be focused on the agenda, I think underserves the premise of public comment. And as I read it now, I'd recommend that it be removed, and that in essence, it's once a month, 1 hour at the public meeting. People trudge and make their way there. They should be allowed to speak on any topic. They get 3 minutes. We only give them an hour. But as written, we're elevating speech that somehow is related to the agenda. We're devaluing speech that's not related to the agenda, because we're in essence saying, you go first, you go second. All of that to me tells people that what they're feeling is not as important if it's not on the agenda topic we want to talk about that evening. And really just public comment. That it relates to the agenda to me, maybe. But that to me is, in this situation, I'd want to elevate. If you come to the meeting, you stick to your 3 minutes, you stick within the hour, your comments will be heard, and then we'll move on with the rest of the meeting.
I see Ms. Daristoledger raised your hand. You have the floor.
Good morning. Thank you so much. I have a couple of things. First, with regards to public comment, I do see that oftentimes there are individuals who have public comments who do not stick to the 3 minutes. They tend to, once that bell rings, they continue to talk. because they have some, everyone has something, whoever speaks has something to say, and they need to be heard. I am recommending or suggesting that we don't have a 60-minute time limit for public comment, because we don't put a limit on public, on the time limit for public comment, because there will be issues that will require, more than 60 minutes. And it's very important to have everyone's voice be heard. Those who do, as Board Member Walker was saying, folks who do come in to speak, they should be heard. And it shouldn't be, as long as we're still in that public comment time and they did, sign up to speak, everyone should be heard.
Ms. Brody, I see your hand raised.
Good morning. I agree with Mr. Walker. I agree with the 3-minute limit, because if we're saying we're sticking to an hour and we're letting somebody go, but we don't know how long the next person will do that or the next person will do that. So that's why I agree with, for people who know they want to speak for more than 3 minutes, they actually use that right to be able to speak more than once. But I think if we let them go over 3 minutes, I respect public comment. For all the reasons Mr. Walker said, and I won't repeat, but if we let them go over, it should be because they've exercised that right. As Mr. I can't remember, one of
Walton.
our
Walton.
Yeah. Walton. That, I think that is good, but we can't ever estimate the time people will take, and we'll lose track and get beyond the hour. I don't think we stick to that hour, because I remember some meetings that we've been, I'm like, 50 speakers? Like, it depends on the night. It depends on the subject, especially when we were doing the DME. But I like how I just agree with Mr. Walker out in there.
All right. So, we have two things on the table, and I'm not trying to have these meetings too long. So the first thing on the table is the 60-minute. Do we want the 60 minutes or not? The second thing on the table is, do we want to limit public comment to what's on the agenda? And so, I mean, in my own personal assessment, I mean, maybe not limiting people to the agenda. I do hear you, Tyrone, that that we have it once a month, and whatever you want to discuss might not be on the agenda. So I think that's a fair compromise. But also, to the first point of the time, I think it's up to the chair and who the chair appoints to keep the people in order. But some, as we know, some stories are just so compelling, you just don't feel comfortable, telling people you got to be quiet and move on to the next. I mean, it is a job. I mean, in other organizations that I'm in, we have a sergeant at arms, that kind of keeps time and is just considered the bad guy. But I'm not sure, how we're going to fare by saying that we want to, how we want to go about literally keeping people to the 3 minutes. I think we do a decent job. Some people do go over with a real emotional story. But folks, the regular folks that we know that come and comment, they typically keep their stuff pretty fair. So, I think, is there any other comment on this before we move forward, or any support or any dissension on it?
Firming it up. But I don't think anyone that was being compelling and crying on, I don't think they've been cut off. I think they've been, leading to making a last comment. I think that's been done gracefully, but you still have the 3 minutes. I don't think well, probably predating you, Mr. Chair, there's people who done got cut off and it wasn't tasteful, but I think as of recent, we've been doing a pretty good job with saying, please wrap up your comments as best we could.
Chairman
Okay.
Johnson, I don't know if you can see the screen, but
Yeah,
Mr.
I see Tyrone and Francois. Go ahead, Tyrone.
Chair, thank you, Pastor AJ. As it relates to your two questions, I certainly I'd advocate for letting folks speak on any topic. To me, the 60 minutes and both the 3 minutes are there as guidelines. I think, as I understand the way we operate with this, that's what I'm trying to say, this policy, the chair has the ability to yield additional minutes to someone if they're given a particularly compelling story. And the chair is able to, again, elevate the issue of extending the 60 minutes if he or she feels like more time is needed. So I'm for keeping the 60 minutes and the 3 minutes, as long as we allow the chair to have the flexibility to extend it when you see a compelling need to do so.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I think that's fair. And when we say compelling, it has to be, really, really compelling. All right. So here's an idea as well that just came my way. If there's no limit to public comment, it might be helpful to move more items to the consent agenda, right? So but I don't know how we would do that before the meeting, not knowing how many people have signed up to move things to consent. Chairman Rigger, do you know? No, because it's a public agenda. But what's your thoughts on if there's, a heavy public comment agenda? When is the deadline for us to move things to consent, or is that just a bad idea?
Good morning, everyone. And I appreciate the dialogue. So as I'm hearing this, at least the way I understand it, I don't think the consent agenda comes into play here. I think public comments are right. I mean, the views of individual people, but as I'm looking at this agenda, I guess I somewhat respectfully agree and disagree, meaning there's two sections here for public comments. And I think part of this is just really just sticking to what we have. So the first part is public comments on the agenda items. And I think as a board, we should hear the views of folks as it relates to the agenda item and topics that we're going to discuss or the business that we're going to do for the district. And then there's a second part here, additional public comments as needed, which is where I think folks are able to voice any concerns that they have. So I think we have it here. My goal is to have everyone engaged in the process and in the meetings, not say that public comments and leave. Now, clearly there are times where we have students, and I think that's a different scenario, but by and large, I would say I get very frustrated that folks come to the meetings, have their public comments. Some are accusatory in nature, which I think is valid, is fair, but then they leave, right, when we're doing the business of the board. So my view is I don't think, to answer your question more specifically, I don't think this notion around public comments, I don't think that impacts the consent agenda. I think that's something somewhat separate, but I do think we should allow people to voice their concerns outside the agenda. And I think we have that structure in place right now. We just have to enforce it.
Okay, Francois.
So I'm gonna lower my hand because what Chairman Rigger said is, pretty much what, since we have something in place and we need to enforce it, I'm for that. I'm in support of that. Thank you.
Shantae, is that a new hand, old hand?
It's new, sir.
All right, go ahead.
So are we saying that someone is going to start to talk and we're going to say, oh, that's not on the agenda? A new parent who's coming to the board meeting for the very first time, trying to absorb this experience, has been encouraged by community people, school level people, actually encouraged by us because we say we want to hear your voice. And we're going to say, oh, that's not on the agenda. You're going to have to speak when it's off the agenda. If that, please explain if that's going to be what we're saying we're enforcing.
Yes, I don't think that that's, so one, I think that's probably an outlier. I don't think that's the norm. And I think, again, when I say enforcement, it's really us doing a better job vetting the speakers when they come, right? So there's two areas where there is public comments. One is on the agenda, and we have to make it very clear, like, is your comment based on the agenda item? And we identify that. And then there's a second opportunity where there's public comment as needed, which is, I think, a more of an open discussion. I don't think anyone on the board is here to cut people off, but I think we just have to do a better job of front vetting the comments or the speakers and the topics that they'll be talking about.
So could I provide some background? It was previous boards that didn't do a good job when they revised this policy, because a revision, it was at a point where parents were coming and speaking and they had to wait. And so it was an attempt to say, parents, we value you and we're gonna allow you to speak and get your, it might be community members, but parents, we value you. We're gonna give you your spot first. I think some other stuff was not cleared up at that same time, but if we're saying we're not gonna just let a speaker speak to what they want to speak to, I'm not in agreement for that. That's a lot, because they'll put down anything. When they learn that that's the game, they'll put down anything on the form and then just say what they want when they're speaking first and not the last part of it. So I don't think we'll ever accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. And I think it seems like one of the things we're trying to accomplish is having a quick meeting instead of having a meaningful meeting and being transparent with the public.
So I guess I'm confused in a sense. I think this provides structure, and what I'm hearing is we just want to open it up and no structure, right? So long meeting, no structure.
That's not being said at all. That's not said at all. Excuse me. It's not said at all.
So, but there's a structure here, and we're saying do away with the structure. So that is what's being said.
The structure communicates that we're elevating some kind of speech over another. We are elevating speech related to the agenda. The agenda goes out 3 or 4 days, maybe 5 days for a meeting. People may work for a week or two in their organizations, their groups, individual people, and have planned what they want to say. Now people come to say what they want to say, and then the vagaries of the agenda come out. So then a person is essentially told, even though they're part of the public, part of the stakeholder in the community, because what they prepared to say is not on the agenda, then somehow it gets slid down in value. They have to wait to the end of the meeting, and hopefully, if they can hang out, we get to hear what they say. And somehow we're saying that comments related to the agenda have more value. That may not be true at all. To be perfectly honest, public comment should just be public comment. As a board member, it does not distress me to have people give their opinions. Stay within an hour, that's structure. You got to write down, you got to say what you're going to say. It's not like people can that's free will and just wing it. There's structure there. It's just that I'm not going to elevate agenda related speech higher than just general comments. That's all that I'm trying to express.
Okay. I got you. Francois, your hand is up, and this is gonna be the last comment we take on this. Go ahead, Francois.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say that if there's a concern, which is a valid concern about, folks for public comment, if individuals want to talk about sticking, to the agenda, what's on the agenda, or they have something else, then perhaps we should explore not having additional public comment and just have it all at the beginning. But like, as Chairman Rigger stated, that we do run the risk of, folks speaking and then leaving, but, we still, we do run, take that chance.
Okay. Again, I just want to give the spirit of this public comment policy update, which was the spirit of people speaking and leaving and not being a part of the business agenda, but also elevating parents and students. So I think what we'll do at this moment is, one, we can either table this, because it seems like this is something that is going to require a little more time or thought, or we can agree to adopt, one or two things. I mean, recommended 60 minutes. What were the updates, Dr. Silver, to this, so I get them correct? Or Christina, my apologies.
So clarifying the 60, because if you notice one, it's a 60, and then further down, it'll say 30 minutes. So I would just have to change to make sure that they're consistent throughout the policy.
Okay. Yeah,
And-
I mean, does anybody disagree with 60 being consistent? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if anybody disagrees with 60 being consistent on this policy. Board members, thumbs up, thumbs down. I see you, Tyrone. Or put in the chat. Agree, disagree on 60 minutes. Put it in the chat. Disagree with it being 60. What I heard is public comments will be 60, will be at a 60-minute limit, correct?
For the first one, if we keep 2. And, okay, Tyrone, please.
$60 minutes, no speakers after 60 minutes. So see, this is where it gets confusing. Not confusing, but this is where it gets interesting, right? Because Christina, what we're saying is 60 minutes for the original at the
Yes.
top of the meeting, and then at the end of the meeting,
As in, yeah, I don't think there's
as needed,
no.
as needed. And do we want to specify, or do we want to leave that to the decision of the chair how long, or do we want to specify it in this policy? Because Phil, I just want you to be clear on the 60 minutes. So you're saying, well, I think what I hear you saying is 60 minutes total for public comment, period. That's it. Top and bottom.
What I heard from everyone was open public comments, no agenda, 60 minutes limit total. Hard stop, right? And like, that's it.
No.
No.
To clarify, in terms of structure, Phil, the 60 minutes gives you sufficient structure. I'm okay to say we can have an overflow. In many of the meetings that we attend, every comment that wants to be said is said within the 60 minutes. I am okay with the idea of a second segment of public comments for overflow. Right. But then that's what it would be for, overflow.
So there's not a 60-minute limit. So we're just taking like let's call it what it is. There's no limit.
No, it's 60 minutes limits, Phil. After
But
60
you just said
minutes.
But
no,
Tyrone,
you have
Tyrone. I apologize. Not my words. You just said overflow. So overflow means above and beyond. Like
Yeah.
words have meaning. So when I say 60 minutes hard stop and you say overflow, that's more than 60 minutes. That's
Agreed.
just basic logical reasoning.
Right, Phil?
So are we saying more than 60 minutes?
You have
Some
two
of us
right now.
are.
Right now you have two public comment segments in the agenda on the screen. You have two segments. Section 4, public comment limited to 60 minutes. Section looks to be section 7, additional comments after the agenda meeting for comments that go beyond 60 minutes. That's structure.
Tyrone, I hear what you're saying, but let's play this out. We're saying more than 60 minutes. And for example, I actually appreciate Shantae's response, which was very direct. She said, yes, we're asking for more than 60 minutes. Like what I'm hearing here, like we're trying to play with words. Let's just call it what it is. Open public comments and more than 60 minutes.
Right. So
I mean, that's what
he-
you're saying. Like, I like, it's like you're like, that is what
That's
you're
not,
saying.
Phil. What I'm saying
No.
that section 4, public comment is limited to 60 minutes. At the end of 60 minutes, we move on with the meeting. That's how I would flow the meeting. 60 minutes for public comment, section 4, public comment, 60 minutes. Then I flow with the meeting. Then if there's additional comments that need to be made, it'll be made at section 7.
All right. So let me ask you this. Let's get more clarity. So how much time do we want? Because it sounds like we want additional time, which is considered more time. How much time do we want for as needed, or do we want to keep it as needed? So if we do have 100 people and we only get to 30 people in 60 minutes, right? We have a significant amount of people that will be speaking after our meeting, or during section 5 or whatever you want to call it right here. Do we want to say $30 minutes additional for additional public comment? All I'm trying to do is limit it, because if we're willing to hear people out, right? If we're willing to hear them out, are we going to hear them for the entire night? Or are we going to be like the state capitol, where we're there from 5 o'clock to 11:30 at night, hearing people out, midnight? You know what I'm saying? So I think we need to put a.
We can put
I think-
I'm fine to put a limit of 60 minutes on the additional public comment. I don't have a problem with
30.
that's
Yeah, I
fine.
would say 30, man.
I think 30.
Okay.
Because think about it. Are we still saying that the chair has the discretion? Like, if we are talking about something that is just like, we need to hear everyone's whatever, then we try to get it. I think we should be making sure that the parents go first, parents and guardians, but it should be 30, but it's still the discretion that, okay, we gave the additional 30, but we really need to hear these people out. Like, we should not close the meeting. But I think 60 and 60, because so we're saying if everyone that signed up to speak speaks in at 60, there's no 30 in the next section. Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And your comment is my comment opening up that says that the chair has the discretion to extend time anyway. So if we can put a limit there, 60 and 30 is fine to me. If you think 60 and 30 is good, 60 and 30 is fine.
Right. Okay. So Christina, Dr. Silver, let's land there on 30. Anything else on this policy that required a revision today that needed clarity?
Of course, I wanted to remove that agenda piece, but that's been we've gone round and round on that. So I mean,
So for now, the 60-30, and then we'll revisit the rest, Chair Johnson, or?
Yeah, we'll revisit it, man, because I mean, agenda and topics, because I think there's so, like, there are some real valid points on the agenda piece, because I know when I prep people to come to meetings, I prepare them on, what's on the agenda, and I try not to make sure they don't get off of it. But I understand someone who's just coming to the agenda, to the meeting, didn't look at the agenda. They were told that this is the spot that they should be, and they come and they just start sharing what's happening with their family, right? And I don't think we should cut them off if this is their 1 month. We don't. It's not like we're gonna be like, come back when it's on the agenda. So I'm not sure if it needs to be said or if it's something that should just happen. I don't think we're that kind of board to to do that. From what I've seen, we're not those people. So I would say let's just hold it until we can get more clarity amongst ourselves on it, and let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Dr. Silver, I'll start screen sharing, and we have theory of action is.
Thank you so much, Christina, and good morning, everyone. It is so nice and warm outside today. It's such a blessing that we recovered from that cold. I am looking through this. This is our theory of action, policy 0010, and it was last updated in 2008 when there was a very different approach to, since then our approach has evolved, I think, and so I'm excited to review this with you. We did briefly go over it in the past, and hopefully I'm talking loudly enough so you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. So we are showing all markup here, and this is redlined, and I will just start with the purpose. To accomplish its core beliefs and commitments, the board sets forth a theory of action that, and here's where the revisions occur, supports and aligns resources to foster high-quality teaching and learning, a welcoming culture and nurturing climate, engaging family and community partnerships, and skillful staff and effective operations. And those areas are the areas from our strategic plan. In the past language was to restructure and reform the district. So the theory of action would be quite a bit different. The diversity of race, family income, native language, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and neighborhood are assets that contribute to student learning. And that is language that was worked on by our board previously in another policy, and we have brought it into this one to communicate to align our core beliefs and commitments. The theory of action provides direction to set goals, strategic plans, budgets, and effective administrative actions. We believe that comprehensive and aligned systems will support a culture of learning in a diverse environment, promoting our learners' ability to honor and thrive in diverse cultures, understand their own culture, and acknowledge the wisdom from other cultures. So I'll pause there. If there's any feedback.
Any feedback, or is everyone pretty solid on the purpose?
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm raising my hand.
Okay.
I'm going to probably wait to have some general comments, but as it relates to kind of just this one, like I don't get, for instance, that diversity of race, family, and income thrown in there. I believe it. I totally, buy into it. It's just that this is maybe I was trying to look up what the theory of action kind of is, and I feel like at its core, it's supposed to be a link between cause and effect. So it's saying, in my mind, I'm looking for, we believe in, because we believe in this high quality, education trying to form, we're going to do these X number of things. Because we do these X number of things, we expect these outcomes to occur. And so that's what I'm looking for. And so I'll leave it there. But that one, I don't understand how the diversity line fits into, that's not an action, it's just a belief. But
yeah, Hold on. So let me clarify, Mr. Walker. I think because I had the same question for Dr. Silver on Friday when we met and had our pre-meeting. Do you mind just explaining what the theory of action is, just so everyone is clear and not guessing what the objective is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
got you, Tyrone. I got you. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that question, Mr. Walker. And I'm sorry, we had gone over it briefly in the past, in January during the committee of the whole meeting. But a theory of action, just like Mr. Walker said, it is a cause and effect statement. And I put something in the chat. A theory of action focuses intention. It articulates why we're taking a set of actions and names the impact that we expect. So it focuses intention, and it clearly states what the intention is. And it articulates our why. Why are we making the choices that we're making? And for the work that's happening administratively, it helps to ensure it communicates the purpose, like the purpose of the work. So what's important to our Board of Education, and how those things, when elevated, can guide decision making. So, for example, our Board of Education feels that equity and diversity are important elements in the experience of our students. So when we are searching for opportunities for our students, for grants, when we are shaping the administrative regulations and implementing policy, we want to make sure that to honor that why from our board.
Is that clear for? Hold on, Tyrone. Is that clear to everyone? Give me a thumbs up, because we're gonna have trouble walking through this document if we don't.
Yeah.
If we don't see it under that lens.
Yeah. I was
Thank
going
you,
to say
Bill.
thank you. At least she explained the intention part, and in essence, we're putting our values in here because our values will guide some of the decisions that we make. So that makes totally good sense.
Okay, Shantae.
Yeah, even with that said, that makes me think Mr. Walker's comment, that diversity of race, I just think that does not need to be here. We have so many policies that define that and have that. Is out of place to me. If what the theory of action definition is, that we're putting diversity, race, income, and gender, sexual orientation, and neighborhood are assets, is out of place for me.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have my hand up.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm looking, but go ahead. I believe you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do have your hand up.
Yeah. So I was going to say that I know that it may seem out of place, but in the times that we're living in, I feel that we need to be explicit, extremely explicit, so that maybe stating it in different areas, having it come up, is necessary to preserve the integrity.
To like the integrity of the document?
Yes, and what we stand for.
Okay.
Because we're talking about neighborhoods and income, and very little, we're not even talking about education. Like we have culture in front of educate. It's weird to me, but that's where I am.
Well, in order for there to be folks to be educated, we have to, it's a good idea to respect culture and be aware of that it exists, that culture does exist, so that once we understand it, we can educate.
Your opinion?
My opinion, absolutely.
Because down below, we get into
other things, it just seems forced there, notably forced.
Yeah. Nurturing, engaging family and community partnerships. Skillful staff and effective operations. The diversity of Hartford, diversity of race, family, income, native language, relationship, neighborhood assets that contribute to student learning. I mean,
So, Mr. Chair, can
Mhm.
I have a
Go ahead.
new hand? Hey, can I just make a recommendation here? Because I do respect what Francois is saying. I'd ask Dr. Silver if she could maybe take that language and move it from there and actually insert it in the way that Francois is talking about. That if we're really saying that we're going to recognize people's culture and their diversity and who they are as we try to build individualized educational plans for them and stuff like that, that's good. So all I would invite is maybe there might be a better place to put that language in this theory of action where it accomplishes the mission that Francois is talking about. That says we will consider diversity and stuff as we look at how we deliver education to people. That's just my recommendation on that.
Yeah. So how about this? Let's hold and let's move forward to see if there's a better place for this. If there's not a better place for this, it is, again, when I think of our policy, and I just want to make this very clear to everyone, when I think of our policy, I'm thinking of when we're not here, right? When Tyrone isn't here, when Phil isn't here, or Shantae isn't here, there's a whole new board of people and they need direction and they need something to go off of. And so I am so with over communicating because we may have a whole new board of people who I don't want them to assume, right? I don't want them to assume what diversity, race, and family, like what these things are. So I just want to let you know the lens of this policy committee is I'm looking forward because I think we have a very good equitable board now, but that doesn't mean in the next 10 years that there's going to be all these great personalities that have this equitable lens. So I just want to put that before us. So let's move forward, Dr. Silver. And if there's a place where we can, this makes more sense, then by all means. But let's move forward just to see where we are and to continue because I want to get us off. I want to get us off before 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay. Will do. And I highlighted this sentence so we can find it again if we find a better place for it. What I'm going to do, it might be easier for us to look at just the simple markup so that we can focus on the new language. Is that okay with you, or would you prefer to have the full language visible?
No, let's go through with the corrections, and what we could do is, again, I want to make sure board members get these documents so we can come to these meetings not looking at it for the first time. So let's look at the revisions and then send everyone the full document with revisions and they could read over. Because this is what our first, on our agenda, this will be our first reading?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, all right, yeah, that should give enough time.
So would you like to see all the text or just the proposed document as it stands now?
What's helpful for everyone?
I like the red lines in this situation. I appreciated the red lines, to be honest with you.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? We all have different, Francois, I think your hand is still up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll put it down. But I'm for, whatever is, whatever the consensus is.
Okay. All right, let's, if there's no disagreement, let's just go with the red lines and then move forward. Everybody has different ways of learning and seeing, so I want to respect that.
Okay. Thank you. Definition. The theory of action set forth in policy by the district is a coordinated framework guided by our district strategic plan and portrait of a graduate. These guiding documents communicate our collective vision, informed by research and the input of multiple stakeholders, of the skills incumbent to our students' post-secondary success. So that would be the new definition, and we are removing that it is built on beliefs about how students learn, the conditions that best promote learning, and the policies, management systems, and culture that promote quality educational services for all students. So what the definition did not include before is reference to the strategic plan and to the work that has been done around the portrait of a graduate. Both of those, the plan and the portrait of a graduate, have received lots of stakeholder feedback and revision and refinement, and reflect the ambition of our community. Oh, I see Ms. Brody has her hand up.
Yep, go ahead, Ms. Brody.
For the reason you stated that this should outdate us. Portrait of the graduate is so specific to us and the other item. I don't think if we're trying to make a document, just as you said, those two are very now things and wouldn't fit based on what you're trying to accomplish with this policy. The strategic operating plan is that of the superintendent that was voted on by this board, and a portrait of a graduate.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. I did use generic terms, district strategic plan. I believe that the plan for excellence is the name of the strategic plan that our board has approved. Also, portrait of a graduate is a national practice, and the portrait of a graduate, it does not say portrait of a Hartford Public Schools graduate, it says portrait of a graduate, which is a standard term for a vision for how students will be prepared by the school district in order to successfully meet and excel post-graduation.
Okay, so strategic plan, yes, but do we have to? Are there other plans that a board could say we're not going to do with the portrait of a graduate, we're going to do something else? If that's the case, then I stand on my first statement. Like, do other districts refer to this as something other than a portrait of a graduate?
No, it's a national term that's used across the United States to, it describes the expectations and outcomes that we aspire to for our graduates. So it's
No matter what they may be.
That's correct. And it could be revised. I know that our community has spent a lot of time in the past, before this was adopted by our board, to shape this document so that it would communicate the values and aspirations for of the Hartford community for students. And if and when the document becomes outdated, it would be something that would be updated through a process, but it will be called a portrait of a graduate.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, continue, Dr. Silver. Let me make sure.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you, Reverend AJ. Theory of action. The Hartford Board of Education sets forth the expectation that schools will be equitable environments that are conducive to teaching and learning. Given the wide range of performance of the Hartford Public Schools and the district's achievement gap, the district will employ a comprehensive managed instruction theory of action that defines each school's core curriculum in alignment with the district's strategic plan and the 5 competencies in our portrait of a graduate. And this is a change from the previous theory of action which awarded autonomy to schools based on student achievement. And we have transitioned to a managed instruction theory of action, which is a process of providing a core curriculum for every grade level for every school that our central office department leads are trained to support the implementation of, and that there are guaranteed viable results that we are engaging as a result of that managed instruction. Mr. Walker, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Silver. That is in there. I understand why it's there because it's what we're actually doing. It's the one thing as you've explained it and I understand it, that gives me some pause. It's an area for me that I'd want to review kind of with teachers and instructional staff at a school level to really see they're buying into that, because this is one of the keys of how this is going to work. Because we've talked a lot about individualized instruction or somehow having instruction tailored to the needs of the student. And this clearly saying something different. This is saying that there is a centralized core curriculum that we're going to roll out. Everyone's going to do it and adopt it and more or less use it. And so I'd want to kind of at least understand on the ground from people then how they're going to teach the other element of tailoring instruction to students. And I'd want to know from them, hey, is this a good approach? Is this approach? Because if they don't think on the ground this is a good approach, then I'm not sure if we want to maintain a theory of action that on the ground people aren't really confident can be implemented and achieve the success we want to have. So I'm just kind of registering a little concern about the centralized instruction. So what are you hearing or feeling, or that's just my concern about that.
So to respond, sir,
Yes.
your question is for me. So I am aware of a comprehensive process that our Office of Academics is going through to review curriculum and to adopt curriculum that meets the needs of our learners in ELA and math and science and so forth. That we do follow the policy for curriculum adoption that our Board of Education has, and that we are in the process of reviewing various content area curricula for selection. So there are some pilots that are going on, and it would be adopted across the district. The goal is to adopt a resource that everyone can use and that will meet the needs of all of our learners. So it has to be both aligned to all the Common Core standards, and it also has to have enough flexibility so that it will support our students with learning disabilities, our multilingual learners, and help us address some of the gaps that the students are coming out of the pandemic with.
Everything you're saying, I totally endorse. I am asking that we give this every bit of flexibility you've expressed gets passed down to the school level, so they too can take what we give them and apply that. Because what I don't hear right now is that they have the flexibility. That once people on high decide here's how we're going to do it, that they just have to implement it. And I'm only saying that because the actual assessment of students and teaching of students and figuring out student differences is really done at the school level. It's not done at central office level. It's not done with curriculum specialists.
Can I help, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So the way I look at what Dr. Silva is saying is we had schools doing it. We had schools that if you were high performing, you did what you wanted. You had autonomy. It spells it out. What that caused is we all know we have students, you go to this school, you move, you go to that school, you move, you go to that school, and it never was sustainable. So from my understanding, Dr. Negron has finally we've gotten to a place as a district that's not that you can't teach, be creative in your teaching, but you can't say, oh, we are high performing school, we're just going to use this book so if everyone is doing that, a child has no way of just hopping from this school to that school and still seeing the same materials. It won't work because we have kids moving and switching through our schools every day. So I'm reading this as that, because this predates me on the board. Like as a parent, they're like, we're using this, we're using that. Every school, we do well, so we do what we want. No, but kids are moving through these systems. You still can be creative within that curriculum. And I think this is more so when you think of smaller kids. I don't have a clear understanding of maybe at the high school level, but it was way too much that if you did things this way and the kid has to learn a whole new way, and that just was not effective in my eyes, and fair for our kids. And I don't know if I'm helping or hurting, but that's what autonomy looked like to me as a parent. With the exception of, some of our, like a Montessori, right? They are what they are, in the way they do things. But it just was it didn't work. It was not good for kids.
Good. I see you turn on. Go ahead.
If I could get just instant feedback. Thank you, Shantae. If that's the way we're interpreting it, I can endorse that. I have heard of the situations where curriculum is pretty varied from one school to the other. So if that's what we're trying to lay flat, then yeah, that makes sense. It didn't quite come across in the wording that's what you're doing, but okay, that seems like a good goal, because I have heard of situations where pacing between courses and, like you said, textbooks and curriculum changes can be pretty significant from one school to the next.
Okay. Dr. Silver.
My hand is up.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Francois. I'm sorry. It's my platform. Go ahead, Francois.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to say this as an educator, from an educator's perspective, who has taught in the district at one point, and worked in different schools. There is the case where, different schools have different curriculums, they're using different programs. One school may use one program A that worked for them. The next year they change it. And the frustration, it's not just with students, but it's also with the teachers, because when the teachers, they get familiar with the curriculum, they have the professional development, they're starting to get accustomed to it, and they're starting to make moves with the students, then they change. There's a new curriculum the next year. So with regards to students moving from school to school, because of, where it's Common Core, where there are certain benchmarks that students have to reach, they should be able to learn with any program that the school decides. Once there's testing that's done or assessments that's done when the student comes in, then they have to look at the progress monitoring and how are we going to help these students. So I think it's what we may want to look at is, do we want every school to use the same curriculum, with the exception of Montessori, of course, or let schools have that freedom of choosing, continue to have that freedom of choosing the different curriculums. The concern that I have with this is, I don't understand how one school may have used one curriculum and then they get rid of it, and then it pops up in another school in the same district. So is so that's actually sending a message. Are these kids in this particular area of the city able to learn better with this curriculum? And if so, why? So that's something that we need to look at.
Thank you. That's very clear.
Mr. Chair, can Dr. Silva, she's writing this because this is where we are. This is not what we're thinking about doing. I don't know that that point was clear. We've gotten to a place where this actual statement is true. So it's not saying, oh, we want to, no, this is where we are. Right, Dr. Silva?
We have moved.
Well, I don't want to have you answer. I guess this more is a Dr. Negron to actually solidify, but we are in that place. And I guess we're trying to get this policy to reflect where we currently are.
Thank you for that, Ms. Brody. I do want to respond by saying that just as you mentioned, we do have a lot of students moving from school to school. And when we purchase and transition to a district-wide curriculum, we have some efficiencies of scale. We have purchasing power that allows us to get the best discounts that we can get by buying in volume. We also have the opportunity to build capacity with our staff in the implementation of this curriculum and to expand that so that all of our subs have exposure to the same curriculum no matter what school they go to, and to ensure there's equitable distribution of resources aligned with the curriculum, as well as the professional learning investments that we make in our staff. So I certainly honor the proposal that Ms. Darcel Ledger stated with studying the impact of various curricula, and I will certainly look into that more. But I did want to respond, Ms. Brody, to your statement about managed instruction. And yes, we are in that place, and we would certainly go to Dr. Negron for a more comprehensive overview of the vision for this work.
Okay, I just want to do a time check. We got, I want to end this by 10, so with 29 minutes left, how much more of this do we have, or is there any other thing that we can just knock out and solidify on our agenda?
So we have another page to review this, and this should look familiar because it does reference the strategic plan for the district. And then this also should look familiar because this portion references the portrait of a graduate that has been established through our community. In addition to this policy, we have student attire, as well as alternative education programs, and planning the Board of Ed equity policy and statement, a draft, and vetting and refining process that we want to discuss with going to our student governance councils, our FACES committee, and the city and community around our equity policy and statement, as well as the leadership awards. So we have quite a number of items on the agenda, and whichever you would like to move, sir.
And so we have a page left of this, of the theory of action.
After this page.
All right, let's just get through, it. Is there anything time sensitive? I can't remember what the time sensitivity of some of the items were on our agenda.
Thank you. We don't have anything pressing that has to go into effect immediately, so we do have some flexibility.
All right, yeah, let's just dredge through this, and finish the theory of action, because this is probably the thing that we probably least want to do, right? So let's just go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you. The Hartford Board of Education, so we've read this statement and highlighted managed instruction, and we'll follow up with Dr. Negron to get more feedback on that. Then each of the areas of the strategic plan appear here, along with an if-then statement to Mr. Walker's question earlier about a cause and effect. And so this is an if-then statement. If we take bold action to understand and meet students' needs in academic development and acceleration, then we will prepare students to experience success in college, career, and community. The next if-then statement is welcoming culture, nurturing climate. If we ensure buildings are safe, equitable, and supportive learning environments, then we will cultivate a learning experience that is inclusive, innovative, collaborative, and engaging. The engaging family and community partnerships. If we engage family and community partnerships, then we will extend student learning opportunities in partnerships between school, home, and the community. And our last if-then theory of action statement, under skillful staff and effective operations, if we have skilled staff, modern facilities, financial integrity, and accessible accountability systems, then we will maintain a high level of operational effectiveness. These four statements would replace this statement about level of autonomy. We are high performing and significantly improved schools earn autonomy. Low performing schools are subject to district intervention or redesign or replacement. And that we did have schools redesigned and some schools closed under this policy in the past. And then new and redesigned schools are granted autonomy conditioned upon continuous improvement of student achievement. So the piece about autonomy and redesign, replacement have been removed and replaced with the statements aligning to the district's strategic plan that our board approved and that our community supported the writing of. So let me just pause here and ask if there are any questions, Pastor AJ.
Any questions from the board? Looking to my colleagues.
No, that language is pretty solid based on that theory of action.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, not seeing any hands or any questions. Let's move forward, Dr. Silver.
Fantastic. The goal. The Hartford Public Schools will be a dynamic, thriving community of high-performing schools in service of student success. The efforts of our talented students, family, and staff, coupled with our resilient community partnerships, will build a stronger school system and a promising future for our learners. The essential elements of managed instruction are a comprehensive and aligned district core curriculum, professional development around the core curriculum, a comprehensive student information system, formative and summative assessments, and carefully calibrated appropriate interventions by child, teacher, subject, and school. All other district systems, budget, financial management, talent management, etc., must be aligned to support the instructional management system. The core curriculum includes content standards, performance standards, and assessments, which are provided by the state accountability system in alignment with federal law. The core curriculum of the Hartford Public Schools will enable educators to provide instructional tasks and offer feedback that prepare graduates to be effective problem solvers, skilled communicators, team players, innovative thinkers, and informed and engaged citizens. So each of these is defined, problem solvers, and this is in reference to our portrait of the graduate, problem solvers who effectively apply prior knowledge, evidence, plan solutions, implement actions, and evaluate impact. Skilled communicators who skillfully plan, express ideas, demonstrate creativity and thoughtfulness, employ active listening, and show respectful participation. Team players who focus on cooperation, awareness, facilitation, resourcefulness, and responsiveness. Innovative thinkers who are able to define creative challenges, generate ideas, contextualize, persist through failure, and choose idea redesign. Informed and engaged citizens who practice informed behavior, acceptance, action, self-regulation, and awareness of digital presence. And we do remove the statements here. Intra-district choice schools will provide regional opportunities for the integration of city and suburban students. This is addressed already in legislation in Connecticut. And then intra-district choice schools will provide preference to students of their neighborhood with remaining seats available to other Hartford students. Parents would have the option of a greater number of schools within transportation zones. And we do have a zone enrollment process already in place. And I see that Mr. Walker has a question.
Yep, go ahead, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Dr. Silver. There's two questions. I think if you scroll up a little bit, you seem to talk about we're going to do the assessments and be aligned with the state accountability system, which I know we have to be, but I thought when the superintendent talked to us earlier, they're like state measures that we know we don't quite achieve. And I thought we were going to almost use slightly different measures because we don't achieve every state measure, right? So is this saying something different? This gives the impression that we're going to do every state test and follow every state measure, and that's what we're going to do. Or is that not how this is to be interpreted?
Okay, thank you for that question, Mr. Walker. The core curriculum includes content standards, and we do have the Connecticut core standards, which are the common core standards adapted and adopted by our State Department of Education. So those content standards are the standards that we are teaching our students to master. Those content standards and performance standards, those are the grade level expectations that that are defined by the state, that the core curriculum needs to ensure that our children are taught to and are able to demonstrate grade level performance. So, and the assessments, which in this instance, many of which are provided by state accountability system, because we do have benchmark assessments as well, which are not provided by the state, which we do have to purchase, which align with the curriculum and help our teachers identify the gaps in knowledge that our students have in order to provide them with interventions and the areas where they excel so that we can provide them with acceleration opportunity.
Oh, okay, but thank you. So, okay, so there are assessments we'll be using beyond just the state ones. That wasn't totally clear. My only other question is, why did we remove the annual review by the board? Is something else replacing that, or is that going elsewhere? At the very end, very end, the board oversight piece that's been removed, is that somehow replaced differently in some way?
Thank you for that, Mr. Walker. In the past, the district would have workshops where each school would provide an overview of their performance. The board will review the performance of each school annually to determine its status and take action according to policy. Because this is to determine its status as to whether or not it's an autonomous school and can make its own selection of curriculum, of program inside the school. Because of that, this certainly we can keep the statement, the board will review the performance of each school annually. But in determining its status and take action according to policy, in the past, if a school's OSI, overall school index, fell below a certain level, the school was identified for redesign or closure, replacement. So that, I think, certainly the statement, the board will review the performance of each school annually is probably a very reasonable piece to keep.
Okay, thank you. There may be other comments. I just wondered about it too. Okay, thank you.
And Ms.
All
Brody,
right, any other comments?
Ms. Brody has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brody?
Yes, if we could leave in there the annual review, make it appropriate for the current structure we have now, but that would absolutely give us a meeting to discuss school performance by school.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. Okay, and we are at the end of this policy. In terms of changes, the last statement, the superintendent will provide a theory of action status and the evaluation report to the board quarterly. The reports may include, but should not be limited to, information regarding the state of the district's accomplishments, curricular issues, professional development, student assessment, and intervention strategies.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with that, and I don't think anyone on this line has an issue with that. Ms. Brody, is that your hand still up? Or? Shante? Okay, she put it down. All right, yeah.
Okay, the only question I have is about quarterly. I know that the superintendent provides regular updates to our Board of Education kind of on an ongoing basis, and there's access to a dashboard. So I'm wondering if quarterly is, and I'm not sure in terms of the objective setting for the superintendent's evaluation, a mid-year check-in and an end of year. It seems like it's 3 times per year. So I'm not sure if quarterly is a term that you want to use here, or if there's another.
So let me, so Christina, when do these, how do we get this to line up in the most efficient way?
I'm thinking of what report she does, superintendent's reports, or you could say at least quarterly.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Francois has a hand up too.
Okay, go ahead, Francois. I'm sorry, just seeing it.
Okay, thank you. I would say, or I would suggest at 3 times a year. After beginning of the year assessments, after middle of the year assessments, and after around end of the year assessments, so that we can see, see the data, see how schools are progressing.
Okay, I'm cool with that.
And Ms. Brody has her hand up as well.
Go ahead, Shante.
Why wouldn't, so I would never make something less reporting. If it's quarterly, why does it have to line up with anything other than her reporting where we are at that time?
Well, I think she was trying to make the, around her evaluation, I think there's other little metrics that we have. I think the point is that we try to make it make sense I do understand your point, but I think that their initial question is, one, define it, and two, how do we line it up with other things? Dr. Silver, I think that's what you were trying to say.
Yes. I was proposing a cadence that aligned with a regular check-in process that our board has with the superintendent. But
Theory of action status. So she's reporting what under that status?
so it would be the work in alignment with these 4 areas.
Okay, because some of those core areas all of them don't have anything to do with scores of assessments for children. So I don't see this as an alignment to scores. I see this as a report to the board quarterly on these 4 things. It touches on, the high quality teaching and learning, but the nurture and welcoming climate, all of those. So I don't know that alignment is necessary, because we'll get the updates on performance, because we have a schedule for that. But this is on the theory of action in a quarterly check-in to say, how are we doing on this? I don't think an alignment, because all the things here don't have anything to do with, they all have to do with learning and performance, but these are specific.
Okay, so I believe the question is a quarterly check-in desirable, or would you prefer 3 times per year?
I'm chiming in. I guess I'll raise my hand.
Yep. Go ahead.
So, Dr. Silver, it's essentially what I heard Francois mention, almost quarterly. I mean, essentially, she leaves out the summer quarter. If we're assuming school's out, maybe it's not reporting then, but the expectation that you'd have, like as she said, at the beginning of the year, kind of baseline, in the first semester, that's Christmas time, that's a quarter. Possibly, she said end of the year, you could do a mid, so I don't know if it's a lot different between quarterly and what's suggested, but
Yeah.
How would you, Dr. Silva, does the quarterly seem excessive to you? Is that what you're suggesting, that it?
Thank you for that. I wanted to make sure that quarterly fit with a cadence that you have in monitoring the strategic plan implementation. And I may not be aware of all of the different check-ins that you have with our superintendent, and I understand that. So I just wanted to make sure that it was in alignment with the work that you're doing, so that it would be coherent and supportive.
Okay. I guess, Mr. Chair, I don't have a strong feeling here. I think Board Member Brody felt like we don't need less check-ins, but other than that, 3 versus 4 to me is not significant.
Right. Yeah.
If we're not doing a summertime check-in, as it were.
Why wouldn't we get summertime? That we have summer school, that's a whole big thing. But I want to just understand the logic between
that's an excellent
aligning
point.
it with totally academics when it's not, all of these things are not totally academic. And that's on top of what she already has to prepare. And we already know when we're presented with data is not enough time for discussion because we're running out of time and we're rushed, right? So I'm like, why wouldn't this stand alone under this particular theory of action? Why wrap it in? Because we have year-round, we don't have year-round school, but basically we do. We have summer school. We have something to report on every single quarter in these 4 categories. So if we're saying we're not gonna do it quarterly, I'm just trying to understand, do we have a layout of the dates when there is reporting? And we could say, okay, that fits that quarter, that fit that quarter, but her understanding, she has to put this within that. And does she even want that? Or to have something separate, you know? I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So it's 9:59 and
yeah, Mr. Chair, if you let me chime in, I'm going to quickly recommend that we just keep it quarterly. Let's just keep it, and we can see if it's excessive. Shantae's point's pretty significant. I do think that whole summer school and middle of the year, yeah, because this really isn't tied to the year. This is tied to a theory of action.
right.
Anyway, I'll let Francois have the final word. I'm going to
Go ahead, Francois.
The reason that I'm saying 3 times a year and to have that data from the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year assessments is that we can see how these 4 areas are affecting and are impacting the learning with that data. It's good to have that data present when we go over those. That's what I was saying.
Sorry, I appreciate Board Member Legend. I'm sorry, just feedback. Now I get what you're asking for, something special, and I get it now. You're intentional. You want it to be aligned with the learning, so we can show it side by side. Okay.
Right. All right. So let's keep it. I think the consensus at this moment is to keep it quarterly.
Okay, thank you so much for that rich conversation. And I will, so I believe that with this first reading, we're ready to go for a first reading to our board, our full board, to bring this up for a first reading. That would be our next step in this policy, and to obtain more information from Dr. McGrone regarding the managed instruction approach.
Correct. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Silver, thank you so much for your patience and diligence. To our board members, thank you so much for your insight. We got through a document, guys and ladies. Good job. So we'll look for those updates. There's other things on the policy committee that we want to look at, but our time is, gotten away from us. So we will pick it up in our next meeting. But I think we've gotten the 2 things that were on our, on our desk, kind of, ready for first reading and review. So I want to thank you all, appreciate you all, and look forward to seeing you all throughout the week.